are not deceived by candidates that try to call themselves Republican, but have a record of governing like Democrats. The local Republican leadership interviewed the candidates and closely examined their voting records, then took a vote on whether to allow each of the candidates to be labeled as a Republican in the upcoming primary election. Most of the candidates were accepted, but 4 of them didn't pass muster. And when they showed up to qualify for office as a Republican, they were politely denied. These 4 candidates have a history of governing like Democrats.
You can still run. You can run. You just can't run as a Republican.
But instead, they are now suing the local party leaders in an attempt to force their way onto the Republican ballot.
These commissioners who have served in the past, they've seen their voting record. They've seen them do things that a lot of folks do not consider Republican. They're not consistent with the Republican Party platform. Raising taxes twice, telling people they can't raise chickens, saying that, you can have your freedom back if you get a vaccine.
Vaccination is the key to getting your freedom back.
That's exactly right.
If you're worried about government control, get out of the health emergency, because that's the only true control. I mean, and the only way to do that is to get vaccinated.
These kinds of things, we believe, go against the principles and the explicit policy statements of the Republican Party platform.
What if the candidate has a history of raising taxes and wasteful government spending?
Y'all act like when we spend money that we're spending your money personal, and we're not.
That is our money. You're our elected officials to spend our money in a reasonable way. Yet you take umbrage with the fact that we might stand up here and want you to hold you accountable.
What if an incumbent commissioner voted to restrict your right to raise chickens?
There's a vote in the commission yesterday. What happened in the vote, and what's ahead for owning chickens?
Tuesday night, the county commission voted 3-1 to restrict property rights.
What does the ordinance say?
The ordinance restricts the number of chickens in residential zones. And when I say chickens, let me clarify, hens. Roosters are not allowed now. So chickens can't free range in your backyard, even if your backyard is fenced. Not allowed to sell eggs or breed chickens for sale. And that's not just in residential zones.
What if a candidate has a reputation for being heavy-handed with citizens at commission meetings?
When a friend and business partner of Mr. Henry, and also his biggest donor to his political campaign.
Actually, I want to go ahead and stop you because I don't want you to sit up there and lie. So if you got,
I was at the meeting.
No,
I'm not. This is my 5 minutes.
This is my room, and you cannot get up here and blast other people.
Is this my 5 minutes?
He is not my biggest donor.
You hate to hear the truth.
No, you're a liar. I mean, you're a bald-faced liar.
What is a lie about this? What is a lie about
Pull
this?
my campaign report.
You're involved with the vineyards. The gentleman here is your biggest campaign contributor.
Stick to topics that do with the county, or I'm going to have you escorted out.
Well, you may have me escorted out, but
I may have you escorted out.
You are afraid because this is the truth.
I'm not afraid of nothing.
It is corruption, and that's what I'm after.
If you want to talk about county business, please.
This is county business.
Continue on.
Corruption that's part of the county is county business.
You're going to leave.
I'm just a Catoosa County resident who wants the freedom to raise my family, raise chickens, and not pay too much in taxes.
What about a candidate who recently made a public endorsement of a well-known Democrat who holds office in the Democrat Party?
What makes them qualified to determine what a Republican is?
GOP leaders like Joanna Hildreth and her team are elected by the people at the Republican County Convention, and they have a responsibility to ensure that the candidates on the Republican ballot truly reflect what voters expect from a Republican.
I don't pay too much attention to local politics, unfortunately, and that's why I really appreciate the local GOP keeping these people accountable and making sure that only true Republicans are actually on the ballot.
They are the gatekeepers who keep people informed, protect the Republican brand, and protect uninformed voters from being deceived by fake politicians who call themselves Republican. The Catoosa County Republican Party leadership is exercising their constitutional right to freedom of association, and they are fighting hard to preserve that right. Freedom of association means that the government cannot force a private entity to associate with someone against their will. The Catoosa GOP leaders are all volunteers, and they are courageously facing massive fines and legal fees as a result of this lawsuit. They have a stellar team of liberty-loving attorneys.
Good evening and welcome to Kingdom of Small Town Underground. I hope everybody's doing good this evening. This is the first time I'm going solo in a little while, and just had a couple of malfunctions this evening. For some reason the video is not wanting to play by itself, so I couldn't really see the screen. So we're going to talk a little bit about this accountability and things tonight. Just give you my take on everything. You might be a little surprised, I don't know. But before I do that, and I may be only able to share the audio, but I want to go ahead and just knock a few things out of the park real quick before we get into this. While people are coming into the stream, I want to go ahead and share a few details. We got a lot of things coming up, a lot of things coming up, okay? So just bear with me real quick. Let me pull these things up. First off, we're going to have on March the 30th a civil safety training, which is going to be in Somerville, Saturday, March the 30th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's going to be at the Catoosa County Agricultural Center. I'm sure that you're seeing these come out into the flyers in the open. We're going to have all kinds of stuff regarding communications, firearm safety, firearm training, neighborhood watches, survival tactics, self-defense, and upholding our constitutional rights. So I know there's a couple of speakers. I know there's more being added to this. Reagan Box from the running for U.S. Senate will be there. Baron Reinhold, a retired naval captain, he's running for sheriff in Gwinnett County. He's going to be there. So it's going to be a really good event. I hope that you guys come out. Tactical Civics is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff. I know the guy that's putting it on. I'm going to be there and be helping out with that. Really quick, next on Saturday, April the 13th, we're going to be doing a fundraiser for Commissioner Blake Ellsbury. On Saturday from 11 to 1, it's going to be at the right there in Catoosa County downtown. I believe it's called the Pavilion. We're still working out all the details. It's going to be from 11 to 1. They're going to have a food truck there. Blake's going to do a meet and greet, and they'll have some sign waving out there and maybe some other things. So more details as they arise. Saturday, April the 20th, on the date of convention, we are going to be having a fundraiser event. It's called the President's Dinner and the State of the State Fundraiser. It's honoring Donald J. Trump. And it's also going to be a fundraiser for like grassroots candidates. So, Reagan Box, she'll be kind of our headline grassroots candidate that we'll be fundraising for. Tickets are on sale on, what is it called? I had a blank here. The tickets are on sale on, is it Patreon or, hang on a minute. Anyway, I've got the link out there, and we've got a QR code. The plates are $100 a plate or $50 if you join one of the organizations that is going to be there. And you'll have bracelets. There'll be a wet bar. There'll be food, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have several speakers. We're looking at the Trump bus. We are looking at getting Seth Keshel and Mark Fincham there. There's the GRA, Tactical Civics. We're trying to work on Georgia Right to Life. There's several things that we're working on, and it should be a great event. And it'll start at 4 o'clock after convention. And then it'll last pretty much till end of the evening. But it's going to be a great event. I'm putting this one on, and so it's more to come. I have an event that I've shared. You can continue to share that out with people, and let's get some buzz going on about this. It'll be a great social event where people can get out and meet each other, and we'll get things rolling. So really quick too. I got so much. We're going to do in the candidate Mondays here on Small Town Underground, so it's pretty much every other Monday. So we just did our first Monday night with Melvin Moody running for District 3 Commissioner. We're going to be doing one next Monday for Commissioner Shannon Whitfield. All of these will be at 8 p.m. Then on the 25th, we're going to be doing Nick Ware. He's running for Catoosa Commissioner. On the April the 8th, we're going to have Sheriff Steve Wilson in studio. And then on the 22nd, we're going to have Angie Teams, who's running for commissioner in Walker. And all of these will be at 8 p.m. And there have been several more that have reached out to me. So we are going to schedule it. I'm just trying to work out a good schedule where I do not get killed by my better half. So it's going to be 8 p.m. and it'll be separate from Wednesdays. And if we just get too many, we may have to double up on some, and I may have to add them to Wednesday. So, but we're working the rest of the dates out. So I wanted to get those out of the way while we're getting some people in. I'm not able to check. Well, I'm going to just check it real quick because I'm trying to go fast to get through this. But you guys, continue to help me share this out. The more people we get, and we're getting some really good views every week, and I think it's going well. So just help me share the content, like, subscribe. I did start a Patreon. I'm not even going to focus on that, but it's there if anybody's interested. So this is something I want to cover before we get down, because I don't know, you can see that I got like 5 pages of notes here, and I've been really thinking about this, but I want to hopefully this is going to work. But this was just breaking news just a little bit ago. The judge dismisses 6 counts in the Georgia election interference case. So let me see if I can get this to play.
Now to that sweeping racketeering case against Donald Trump in Georgia.
That's playing.
A Fulton County judge today dismissing 6 of the 41 counts against the former president and top allies Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows. It's considered a legal setback for prosecutors, but Trump still faces 10 charges that could result in decades in jail. Here's CBS's Nicole Killian.
Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee threw out charges that accuse former President Trump and several of his co-defendants of pressuring public officers to violate their oaths as part of an alleged effort to overturn the 2020 election. McAfee said District Attorney Fani Willis and her prosecutors were not specific enough about the violations, writing, "The lack of detail concerning an essential legal element is fatal." Just 3 of Trump's 13 counts were tossed, including one for his January 2021 phone call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Trump's legal team applauded the ruling.
It was a step in the right direction. It goes to the sloppiness of, frankly, the prosecutors down there.
Former federal prosecutor Tom Dupree said it was only a partial victory for Trump.
The judge's decision effectively has the result of narrowing the case against Trump and the other defendants. It doesn't eliminate it entirely, though.
It is a lie. McAfee's ruling comes ahead of a highly anticipated decision this week about whether Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade should be disqualified from the election interference case. Last month, the pair admitted to having a romantic relationship for about a year after Wade was hired, but denied any wrongdoing.
The romantic relationship ended before the indictment was returned, yes or no?
To a man, yes.
The sprawling racketeering case against the former president and his associates remains largely intact. But if Willis is disqualified, another attorney could be assigned to the case, which could significantly impact the proceedings. Nora?
And potentially delay them.
Okay, there's your breaking news, man. Pretty good news, I would say. I'm trying to digest it a little bit, but I really, I just happened to open it up and see it. I think this broke about an hour ago. So this judge in the case, which I think I have another article about that. But anyway, it's here. This is from Reuters here. Trump Georgia elections aversion judge dismisses some charges. Now, most of these are going to be highly slanted. I mean, highly slanted, but this just broke. The judge in Donald Trump's Georgia election case subversion trial on Wednesday dismissed 3 criminal counts against the U.S. former president and 3 others against co-defendants, a court filing showed on Wednesday. So this is some pretty good news here, and that was Reuters. It's blowing up everywhere. I'm sure they're going to be talking about it tomorrow. And by the way, hi Mike and hi Kim. It's good to see you. And hi Barbara. That's some big news. So apparently this new judge, he's only I think he's 34 years old. I was listening to a little bit of it today, and he's a young judge, and I believe he worked in the office with Fani Willis. And I'm still skeptical of everything that's going on in this case. We still haven't got a clear ruling in the curling case. We haven't got. They're slow rolling this stuff. Even when I pulled up articles to find this stuff, it was. It's like from the 1st of March. It's already the 15th. If you've watched any of this clown show with Fani and everything, if it's been anybody else, they've been thrown completely out. So I'm hoping that the judge considering that he's looking at 6 counts, and he was on a TV show saying that, he was going to take this very seriously, and he'd already made up his decision on some things, but then he did like a 2-week pause or something. Who knows? I mean, every day, I mean, we understand right and wrong doesn't matter, up and down. It's ridiculous. But we need to get past this clown show, and at the very least, fingers crossed they get rid of Fonnie Willis. That way they can either offer it to the rest of the DAs or nobody picks it up, and this whole thing can just go away. But we're living in a state that they don't want it to go away. We know they don't want it to go away. So it is what it is. But I really wanted to cover that. Hello, Donna. It's good to see you. Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. So the video that I played in the beginning was from the GRA. They posted that video. I posted a link this past week on the Kingdom Lum Small Town that basically laid out the most relevant articles that I could find on the Catoosa County Accountability. Now, I haven't spoken much on this accountability by myself. I've had several people that I've brought in here. We had Christopher Mora from Pickens County. We had Jennifer Tudor from Chattooga County. And, of course, Catoosa County just got done with theirs. And I think we covered a lot of this going into this this primary or this qualification session. And so now the floodgates have kind of been opened. More and more people are watching the news and the TV, and they're scratching their heads. They're saying, what on earth is going on? And it's a little bit, to me, unbalanced, because I think that the majority of the communications going out to people on this subject is very heavy-handed and made to sort of look like something that it's not necessarily. So I thought that I would share my opinions about this accountability and how it's kind of blossoming out here, right? I mean, no doubt this will be some sort of a national media attention, especially anything that is considered a divide in the Republican Party, right? They will use this to their advantage, and then it's just a spin. I don't think that both sides are being represented equally in this case. So one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sling mud. I'm not throwing people under the bus. I'm not going to use names or I'm trying to stay in the middle on this so we can learn together, because there's so many questions out there about accountability. And the only way that I think I can talk about this is to kind of go back to my feelings when I first understood or was beginning to understand accountability. And let's just clear the air. This is not a rule. This is something that is wrote into the rules here in these counties, but it's a freedom of association. What that means is that the Republican Party is a private membership. You become a member of that, and the accountability is something that's built into not only the Constitution, but the Republican Party. They're kind of the gatekeepers of who represents you. And I think the biggest misconception here that's being spun is that it blocks people off the ballot, and it does not block anybody off the ballot. What it does is the Republican parties, they vet candidates, and if they deem them to be disqualified, it does not allow them to run as a Republican. They can still run as an independent. They can run as a Democrat. They can still get on the ballot, but just not with the Republican Party. Okay, so that's the beginning of this, and so I want to be blatantly obvious here that when I first heard about accountability, I heard about it being tossed around down at the state level, not on the county level. And full disclosure, I joined the GRA, and I'll explain that in a minute, because I don't regret my decision for joining the GRA or anything like that. But it's hard. It's a concept that is rarely used, but it is used. It's used by Democrats. It was used by the Republicans to keep David Duke off the ballot, to keep him from being able to represent the Republican Party. And I'm not comparing David Duke to any of these people that have been disqualified. And full disclosure, it's not my county. I don't live in Catoosa County. I live in Walker County. We're not currently, we did not go down accountability in Walker County. And it's on a county-by-county basis. And it's certainly being discussed, and it's definitely being discussed now because people are wondering, what is this all about? So I'm going to try to go through my notes here, and because, man, it's been on my mind. So the accountability, at the first glance, it seems like a radical idea that a party would have the gumption or the power to restrict a candidate running for their party, right? Because it could, I guess, could be a slippery slope the way that you look at things. I'm not talking about the fact of the law or the fact of how the First Amendment is perceived and how a private membership is perceived. I'm talking about public perception, right? To think that you can block somebody from running as a Republican, right? And, you know, that there's a lot to unpack there, because I can understand the public perception of the accountability being, well, you're talking about a small group of people that has got the power to do something like this, and this is voter suppression and all this stuff. And really, when you think about it, I want to pose a question tonight to people, a serious question, like, how did it get to the point, all right, in politics where the Republican Party is actively seeking accountability, right? Like, you got to ask yourself these questions. Why? Why would counties be wanting to hold their candidates, their qualifying people to a principled standard? And so, you know, when you start to understand why, and we're going to cover a little bit of that, it's something to think about. So I want to start back to when I first got into all of this. So a lot of you out there know that I am very pro Second Amendment, right? And we started all this under a very simple pretext. You know, years ago, there was some really bad legislation that was coming out. I'm talking about like it was just sweeping the state. Gun rights were being violated in so many different places. The Second Amendment was being trampled on. There were multiple lawsuits that were going around where these, I won't get into specifics, but in my industry, that there was a situation that happened in one of our counties that kind of kicked off a lawsuit from, you know, some kind of either Berkeley or UCLA lawyers, where they got together and they wrote this petition up to go to the courts, and they started pushing this stuff out to all these, I would not necessarily call them non-governmental organizations, but people in different states from this legislation, so they could just flood the judicial system with all of these lawsuits, you know, to try to stop certain industries or certain things from coming. It's just normal practice. But the same thing was going on with the gun legislation. And so several of us sort of at the same time picked up on these things and started scratching our head and going, gosh, this is insane. I can't even believe that legislation like this is going through our system. And it seemed like the more questions that we asked, the more that we were getting from our representatives, like, man, you guys are freaking out. Don't worry about this. We draw the line here. Nothing like this is going to happen. And you scratching your head going, how can this even, you know, oh, this will never make it out of committee. You know, this is never going to happen. You just don't have to worry about it. So several counties, we started a Second Amendment forum. We went to our counties, through our commissioners, through the legal avenues to get certain things set in place, or at least on paper, that our local governments would make sure and have the people's back. And as this thing progressed, you know, it progressed into more and more fighting, and you had more organizations like Georgia Gun Owners coming out. You had grassroots candidates that were getting elected coming out. You were doing all of these things to try to mitigate all this draconian legislation, right? Because we're getting hit on every front. We're getting hit on the First Amendment. We're getting hit on the Second Amendment. You know, the Constitution itself. They're There are college campuses where professors are telling people that the Constitution needs to be dissolved, and so we're in this huge culture shift right now, and we know this. But that's where it all started for me, and I'm just a single person that got together with a group of people, and we all band together, and through the banding together, through the people banding together, and basically telling both sides of this coin, this uniparty, that enough's enough, we're not going to stand with it, we were able to make some huge progress and raise some huge eyebrows. And, you coupled every group together, we were looking at 15, 16,000 people at one time. Now, that's a lot of people that your message can get out to. And we got the ball rolling on several pieces of legislation. The constitutional carry, I don't think that would have ever been passed in Georgia. I don't think it would ever have been passed in Georgia without the pressure from the people to make that happen. And though I never went to the signing when our Governor Kemp signed it in office right before this last election, I heard he was gritting his teeth while he was doing it. So, and we ought to be thankful that we're now a constitutional carry state, right? But that's where it all kind of started, and you started seeing the power of the people. The people were taking the power back, where our political system had been like, well, we elect representatives, we elect people, and they go down to the Dome or they go up to Washington, and they basically, fall in line with whatever uniparty establishment's going on, and of course they tell us what they want us to hear, and they know better than the people, and so they just been able to vote however they wanted to vote, or they go into the back rooms and they make the deals. Well, I will give you this if you give me that. And it's all a tug of war, like a country club. It really, really is, and it's like a hierarchy system. It's an establishment where you've got all of these foundations built on whatever can and further self-interest versus the people. And we see that because the decades that we've continued to go along and not pay attention, and our political system, our institutions, our foundations of this society is crumbling here because we have allowed it to. We were asleep at the wheel. We were allowing these things to happen, and we were making money, and we're going to work, we're raising our families, we're doing all of these things, okay? And now, it's 2024, and I see this same message across all social media everywhere. Do you think you were better now than you were 4 years ago? Or who can raise their hand who was better now than 4 years ago? And that's my point when I'm talking about this. So as we got into the politics, I tried to keep the Second Amendment separate. And it's very hard to do because we're living in a society now where everything is politicized. Everything. You can't, it's almost like the Bloods versus the Crips, red versus the blue. It's a systematic divide in everything that we do, right? So, I reached out to my then senators and my House of Representatives and making sure that our gun rights are protected, and they're holding the line, and but it turned into kind of a circus, so many grassroots people, and I go back to John Cowan, not McCowan, but when Marjorie Taylor Greene came up out of pretty much nowhere, as she moved to Floyd County, she was the hot grassroots candidate there. There was a huge pushback from the Republican Party about the front runner being Marjorie. Everybody at that time wanted John Cowan to be that front runner. They wanted it, and Marjorie was an outsider, and she was not controllable. And John Cowan was kind of like this. He was an established. I'm not saying establishment. I'm saying he was an established candidate. He was the party backer, and the grassroots kind of tore that up. They showed that it could be done, that you don't have to go along with the status quo. You don't have to go along to get along. You can elect people that you want to represent you, okay? And then, you've got to remember in history here where we've come, from. So now that everything is politicized, and it's not my fault that everything's politicized, this was the reaction of what I call the deep state when Donald Trump, surprisingly won the 2016 election, obviously because they weren't prepared for the amount of people that came out to vote. So you've got everything pretty much went completely crazy between 2016 and 2020. And we've covered that ad nauseum. But look what happens when you stand up and you vote for somebody that's not a part of that system, okay? It's not a part of that system to where you can control that person like you can control the person that's already in established in that system, okay? So once these grassroots candidates start, just coming out and taking these offices and taking these positions, there was an outcry to get rid of the old guard, because people were starting to see. It's the same thing that I've said before. It's the same thing that I've ever said before, was that, you get mad at the day in and day out kind of BS that's going on in every legislature in every state, right? But you can get completely out of bounds with that and wound up, but then you realize that this is business as usual. This is the way things have always been, and now you're just kind of awake and you're trying to grab the wheel and keep the wheel from going off the cliff. But you're present, you're there, you're starting to figure out how this all works, and that's a big ratchet into the established parties, right? So we all want to fix the broken system. And in some ways, we kind of did fix the broken system a little bit. We started getting these grassroots candidates that were coming up out of nowhere, and they were taking power away. All right, they were taking power away from the establishment structure. And so what it kind of did was it forced the I don't know, I keep saying establishment. I want to be clear. I'm not name calling here, but it made the establishment back away a little bit, and I'll explain that in a second. Well, think about Governor Kemp, for example. After he was reelected, he publicly came out saying that he no longer needed the Republican Party as it is, and decided to branch off and take his money and create these coalition groups, all over the state of people that were just they weren't gonna involve themselves in what's going on. So, I don't see anybody talking about this very much, and they don't want it talked about. They want to be in the background. They want to be in the darkness of what they're doing. But like I said, this stuff happens all the time. And why are we singling this one thing out, right? So you have an entire breakaway of the Republican Party because some of the grassroots took power away from them. So there was legislation that was passed right before our last senator was in office that allowed the governor to do this, allowed him to legally take money, to legally take campaign donations from anywhere and any amount, and they didn't have to disclose these things, kind of like a corporation. And so, they're sitting on millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and the Republican Party is left with the bill. We're paying Donald Trump. We're teeter-tottering, and there's a lot of division here, So let me go on here. So when I decided that I was going to join the Republican Party, I've considered myself mostly a libertarian for the most part for the vast majority of my adulthood. Just somebody that, I want as little government as possible. That's just the way I've always been. I want to govern myself. I want to be able to do things myself. I understand the rule of law and that we have to have a society with laws. But I consider myself, even to this day, primarily, I have libertarian points of view on a lot of things. But the battle lines are sort of drawn here in this crumbling political system between red versus blue, right? So as I joined, or deciding to join the Republican Party, I joined and I had to read the principles and understand what they were about and understand what they were, where they were going and what kind of direction. And that is the party. You join the party, you're supposed to be able to uphold the principles of the party. I meant to pull those up, but I didn't. But it's very plain and simple. it should not be about me. It should be about the party. What can we do to move the party forward and move our principles forward and govern by legislation that's governed by those principles, right? Very, very simple. And so there's this divide because there's a lot of people that don't feel that way, you know, and there's a lot of people that get into politics because of self-interest. And I'm not naming names or blaming anybody. I'm saying it's just the nature of the beast. It's the very nature of the beast. You get welcomed into something that you can obviously get into that will make you rich and make you powerful, and that's, you know, we all want to win the lottery, we all want to be millionaires, and it's just that's the natural reaction, I guess. So let's see here. Let's see. So I'll give you an example about abortion. You know, I've talked about it before a lot of times. As I grew up mostly an agnostic for a long time. Abortion wasn't even an issue to me because I knew that in my life, in my family, you know, abortion was something that would never happen with me or anybody around me, but I didn't really care at the time about abortion per se, you know, to each his own, the libertarian point of view. But when you join the Republican Party and things, and you especially when you find that God has been waiting on you, you know, God has been working on you, and you realize that every life does matter, and that abortion is something that shouldn't be. It is an abomination. You know, that's where you go with it. And even if your views were skewed from that, if you're joining an organization that doesn't support abortion very strongly, then you don't support abortion very strongly. That's the way it should be. If you don't like it, don't join the party. You see what I'm saying? So, of course, I believe abortion is an abomination, but I'm trying to be on a humanistic level with people because there's so much confusion over this. But the whole point is, it's the principles of the party. If you don't like the principles of the party, don't sign up to the party, right? But we all have to be held to a standard, okay? So, the war is red and blue. I looked at the party. I decided to join, to get involved, become a Republican. I was already like a libertarian, conservative, you know, say whatever labels you want to get it. But now that I've joined and I've been active in it, I understand where it always goes back to, you don't look at self, you look at the party. What is best for the party? What is best for the people? What is best for the society, right? All right, so once I realized that this is how I can help make a difference, I got into the trenches, right? So I'm involved now. And why this matters is because that's kind of a natural evolution. If you're going to get into the fight, you're not going to go the opposite way. You're going to get involved where you can get involved. And that's where everything is. That's where the involvement is now. So that's where you dig down, you say, what do we need to do? How do we need to protect ourselves? How do we need to protect our Constitution, our principles? Very, very simple. All right. And I never knew, this is another thing about the Republican Party, I never knew how easy that it was to get into the party. I always thought growing up that, you know, you had to be in the upper echelons to be in the party. I always thought that you had to be somebody that you had to know somebody to get in. You had to, even to this day, there's people that have made a comment, say, do you know why I came to this Republican meeting? And why is that, sir or ma'am? And it's because nobody ever invited me, you know. So it's almost like this, it's been this way for decades and decades, like the divide between politics and life, where people just go about their daily life and they never get involved. And then almost till it's too late, and then you realize how easy it was to get involved and how easy it was to just take up a spot and say, hey, let's move this forward, which is another reason on accountability that we'll get into. Let's see. Once in, I also realized that the very same people fighting against accountability, okay, this is my opinion, the vast majority of the people that are fighting against the accountability are people that hardly have anything to do with the GOPs, right? They're not active members in, you know, in the party that we have established in this state that moves the party forward. In other words, it looks to me, the optics I see are that the vast majority of the people that don't participate in any of this stuff are the same people who don't want accountability. They'd rather stay in the darkness and kind of do things on the sidelines and not include people, which goes against the ethos and the principles. We're supposed to be working together. We're supposed to be unifying our party. We're supposed to be active and engaged in the same direction. So it would appear to me that you have a single direction that wants to go into the party of the people, and then you have another direction that goes into the party of the club, more or less. That's how I kind of see it, okay? Let's see. So, and that's another thing I got. It seems to me that some of these people that I run into think that the vast majority of people are too stupid to get into understand politics, and that you should be in a certain group or a certain job or a certain profession to be a part of this. And that is a very wrong stance to take. I mean, people are a lot smarter than they look, and especially when you get in these areas where you get into the highly educated versus common sense people, and it seems like we've lost so much common sense. And now we're getting people that are just looking at things in common sense points of view, and a lot of these institutions and these legislative laws and the things that get pushed are very complicated, and they're complicated on purpose, it seems, So much of it is just overly complicated, like our tax system, for God's sakes, right? But I see that a lot of people are hardly ever involved until they need to be involved, and so the more and more the GOPs are being restructured by working class people now paying attention, because our nation was shocked into almost overnight by a deep polarization. Which is what I said before. Everything became politically polarized. I mean, you can't even wear a red hat now without somebody thinking the word MAGA, right? So politics are here to stay, and it's gotten woven into the kind of fabric of our society. And I don't think that the people that did this were planning on this kind of a patriot awakening, if you will, because it opened up so many wounds, and it was opened up so many eyes. It was like red pilling people into seeing things they'd never seen before. And so maybe this is a backfire. Maybe this is God's divinity, right? That people that normal working class people are really getting involved into the party, and it's not any kind of a country club anymore. It's more of a power to the people, which is what this whole accountability is. Okay. So now we have what I call, well, I didn't coin this phrase, but the battle lines call basically establishment versus grassroots, right? That's what the big thing is: establishment versus grassroots. Or patriots. I mean, they're trying to paint patriot as a dirty word, right? And, the establishment to me is just somebody who I think has a self-interest over interest of the people. And what I think the grassroots have is more of we want the people to have the benefit of government, right? Whereas the establishment wants the individual to have the power and the government. Okay, so the longer the time goes on, the easier it is to see this divide, because we all stick out like sore thumbs now. Everything has become so polarized that you can see a lot of in the divide. You can almost spot people now for what side that they stand on. The line used to be a very gray line. Now it's becoming like black and white. Like you can see very clearly, for the most part, who is on what side. And I don't know if this is done by design to, inflict the party, but it is what it is. And I know a lot of you will agree with that. You can kind of see it, and you can see people who, on both sides, that find ways that they can get into the middle, or people that were heading down one way and then they came back and realized because their eyes were open. So, and as time goes on, I think we're going to see that a lot more, And then we get to the slang term, which has become rhino, right? So we have an establishment slang term called rhino, and now the establishment the slang word for patriot or grassroots is now a crazy. You call them the crazies. They're the crazies, right? And we're going to get to that in a minute. So it's a clear war of division here going on. So you've got these rhinos on one side versus the crazies on the other. And that's just the general term that people are using. And it's very hard to be in the middle of that. It's very hard because both sides don't want anything to do with either person or either slang group. And so it kind of creates this stopgap where everything kind of just, it's like hitting a brick wall almost, So let's see. Once the group seems to be stepping up, taking charge. Okay, one group, right? So we've had this establishment sort of party for a long time, and things have been rolling just, I don't know if they consider it smoothly, but they're rolling along, and then all of a sudden you have these people that have a different outlook and a different way to look at things, and they start taking the power away from the machine. And then that creates the rift, and it starts moving the power structure toward the people. Common sense, concise and transparent laws, standards and principles that, let's see, I can't even read my writing, but yes. So clear, concise, and transparency. So I see the grassroots movement wanting transparency. They want things to be transparent in every way. We want to stop omnibus spending and bills. We want to stop these multilateral bills that are called, Mr. Sunshine, but they got rainy day down in the bill. We want things to be spelled out for what they are. And the complications to me of the establishment are that they're able to write and design this legislation that is, not only is it super hard to understand in some ways, but it's multi-layered with all of these strings attached. And this doesn't stop at our state government. It goes to the federal government and everything we do. Everything has to be a little more complicated than the common person can understand. And that's where confusion makes money, right? I mean, that's the saying on a construction site. That's the saying anywhere you go, confusion makes money. And so I feel like that's the way I'm defining an establishment, is somebody who likes the confusion, and a grassroots is somebody who doesn't like the confusion. It's cut and dry. Let's make this happen. Let's move along, right? And it seems to me that the grassroots are kind of out in the open, and they're very open about what they're doing. There's not a lot of backroom deals being made. There's people out here that are just like, hey, this is what we want. This is what we want to protect. This is what we want to do. And we were going to show everybody what we're doing. And it seems like the other side of that coin likes to operate in the shadows, operate behind closed doors, be very quiet about what they're doing all the time, and nobody ever knows what's going on, right? I mean, it's the battle of light and dark to me is really what it is. But let's see. So then they find ways, of course, to infiltrate and instigate the people that generally seem to have a very strong self-interest and personal gain. So what I see is a lot of infiltration into this, to where people want to get information and feed information. It's less like a war. You're getting information, you're feeding information, you're trying to buddy up to so-and-so to do things, and it's pretty crazy. Because in the grassroots, at least since I've been involved, and going back to the GRA, for example, I sat and listened to a presentation of the GRA, and after the presentation was over, I said, I really like where these people are going. They were already talking about accountability a couple years ago. They were already talking about grading our legislatures based on how they voted and what they voted for against the principles of the party. There are several organizations that do this. But in my view of politics, because I go back to the same thing I said, we're not better now than we were 4 years ago or 8 years ago. Things are crumbling around us. We must take control, take the reins of this, and try to move forward and bring transparency back to the party and to the laws and the structures, because we can't even fight the other side of this coin, the Democrats, which are completely out of their element because we're fighting amongst ourselves, right? Is it because it's a natural phenomenon that occurs, or is this something to where people are compromised, or people are in too deep with certain, confusing business deals or things that would move them forward and they can't turn back? I mean, where does it all end at, right? Why can't we have people for the people, by the people, and the transparency? So, in my opinion, a patriot wants to hold up the Constitution, do away with special interests. They want to have less government, have less laws. They give the power back to the people, spend less, tax less, and general problems that need to be fixed. It doesn't seem like that's been happening, right? Because look at where we're at in politics. Have these things been getting better or worse? Have our taxes went down? Do we have less special interest groups or more special interest groups? Do we have less lobbyists, more lobbyists? Is there more dark money being pushed into politics or less? So it's not crazy to think that something needs to change here. Okay. And then on my opinion of the people that I've worked with and been around for a while, the establishment of what you would name them, are people who generally think that everything's just fine and dandy. They don't want to step on anybody's toes. They just want to move along to get along, and they don't want to ruffle any feathers, right? There's nothing wrong with the election systems. Everything's just fine in Georgia. Nobody is being compromised. Everything is hunky-dory, right? And so the battle lines are drawn. While the Democrat Party is the worst party you could possibly think of, they have taken on so much vitriol, so much evil, so much degradation that if we had a unified Republican Party, we could smash these people, right? Of course, if everything was fair, my point is that there should be no reason why this Republican Party that's this strong could not be moving forward and just steamrolling the Democrats with this insanity that's going on all over the place, right? And, a lot of the things now that we're paying attention in our own legislatures, and the bills are super hard to keep up with. All of these things are rolling 90-0. Every other day, I get even a call or a text about a bill that we need to sit down and look at. And can we trust our constituents, right? Do we have the people that are Republicans that are representing us that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt are going to vote for our best interest versus the special interest, right? And that's another point of accountability. So let's move into the accountability a little bit. What do we know about accountability? Well, it's technically not a rule. It's a freedom of association, right? It is a private membership, and the GOP is the gateway. They're the representation of the county, the state, the national level, the RNC, you name it. So people go to the established party, okay, that the state recognizes and the county recognizes and say, this is the Republican Party. We're not talking about branchaways or coalitions or anything else. And this is where you go and you make a difference, right? So you become precinct chairs and you become executive committee members where you're actively trying to reach out to people and you're actively trying to represent the people in your areas. And as you do that, you are the kind of the talking point for the Republican Party. That's where your power comes in, because as you're doing this, you're representing those people that are just not paying attention or low information, whatever you want to call them, people that just don't care, And let's not pretend like people don't care, because as much as I've been an advocate for voting, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people I've known for 20, 25 years that never voted in their life and never had planned on voting, regardless whether it was Donald Trump. And then you look at the people that you have that were red-pilled when they voted for Donald Trump. I mean, just like Richard, was talking here, and I'll get to chats in a minute. He was talking about the Trump rally in Rome which I didn't go to the rally. I was never going to go anyway. I was going out of town, but the weather was bad. But packed out houses everywhere he goes. People are on fire for Donald Trump again. and all of these narratives. We're not going to go into that, but my point is like don't believe your lying eyes is what they want to tell you. You know, Donald Trump should be winning in a complete landslide, and of course he won the primary. He is the front runner. But my point is that the Republican Party is the gateway. So where do you go if you want to get involved politically? Well, you go to the party of your choice. Well, it's a Republican, Democrat, Independent Party, wherever you go. And that's where you go and you start meeting people and say, how can I get involved? And a lot of people use it, of course, it's there as a vehicle to be elected. It's there as a vehicle to move yourself forward. I get that. But there's more people now than ever that don't really care about moving forward in self-interest, and they want to fix the party, fix the transparency, fix everything that's wrong. And that creates a huge stalemate for people that have self-interest and the people that want to keep the ball rolling for themselves, you know. And how many times do we see this? How many times? I mean, am I saying something here that is not true? I mean, I don't think I am. And so that, you know, that's the gateway of the party. Why is it so bad to hold people accountable for their actions? Some responsibility. And I'm not even using the current Catoosa County situation to, I don't have a vote in that. All right. All I see is what I see. But I'm asking the question tonight to the people. Tell me, why is it bad that the Republican GOP, who are the gateway to our party, why would it be bad for them to use their freedom of association to vet people in their areas and try to find people that are for the people, that are wanting to restore that transparency, restore that power to the people, and cut off the establishment politics and cut off the backroom deals and cut off all of these things? Because, as I said, I'm not here to throw stones, but the more that I research into some of the people that run for these positions, the more similar the positions are, the more similar that their friends' positions are and everything. The more that you uncover, the more you realize that there are certain gains to be made in the number one development state in America, Georgia, which is on fire, you know. And all the industry wants to come here. Everybody loves Atlanta. There's a lot of money flowing in and out. There's a lot of money to be made to develop land and to bring more communities together here with rent to own, or not even rent to own. But you see my point. There's a lot of things that I don't think we're seeing that some of these counties are looking at, saying we need better leadership. And in the case of Catoosa County, I believe that the people that went through this qualification process have already been leaders. So maybe that's the GOP, the people's way of saying we need somebody new. We need somebody that can come in that will be transparent. You see what I'm trying to say? I don't understand why that it's a bad thing. And I'm talking as public interest, right? I'm not talking about the law. The facts are the facts. This case is going to play out in court. But ask yourself why. Why is this so heavy-handed on one side, to where people are, the narrative is basically, they're painting this narrative like if they're going to block people from the ballot, they're blocking voter suppression, they're doing everything possible to keep people. Nobody is being kept off the ballot. You understand? It's only the accountability is for, are you going to put an R next to your name or a D or an I? That's what it is. And the power of the people, they should have that power. And if people don't like it, they should get involved in the GOPs. They should be the ones that's making the changes and coming together, because I don't see any of these people sitting down and saying, hey, what's going on here? Why can't we get on the same page, right? Because we're supposed to have, the principles haven't changed. The principles are there. Why are people not coming to the table and looking at the paper and saying, this is what we need to do, instead of this is what I need to do, right? So I believe accountability is a good thing. And there's definitely going to be more court cases brought up about this. So, you know, if you don't have accountability, then what happens? Okay? if you are not able to vet your candidates, especially at a Title 21 political organization, if you're not able to vet your candidates, okay, even in the public opinion, then where does this ever stop? Where does anything ever stop? Perhaps the accountability would give people exactly what they needed to go and get involved in the GOP. And I say all these things as a person who is never going to run for office. I have no political gain or motivation in what I'm doing. I think I've proven that by now. Every candidate that's going to come in here on a Monday knows that I'm not going to publicly endorse them as a candidate. I'm going to let them have their time to speak on this program and get their message out. But at the end of the day, it's my decision, and I will go vote. But why can we not hold people accountable for their actions? This is why our society, this is why our politics are in such bad shape, because we've let it go for too long. And part of that is our fault, right? Because we haven't been paying attention. We haven't been out there in the trenches making sure, and because a lot of the grassroots did, that's where you got your Marjorie Greens. That's where you got your Colton Moores. That's where you got some of these establishment positions gone. And no, I don't believe that every position, if I've had somebody in there for 20 years, I don't believe that every single person is establishment or anything. What I'm trying to say is that when things are getting this bad in our society, we must be able to hold people accountable. And going back to the very beginning here, when you're looking at the Fonnie Willis case, when you're looking at the curling case, when you're looking at all these, when you listen to Alejandro Mayorkas and the Homeland Security about the border, there is zero accountability held anywhere in this country right now. But you better believe that you, as just a normal citizen, you're going to be held accountable. You're going to be held in contempt. You're going to be held paying fines and doing all these things, when all you're trying to do is exercise your freedom of association, and you're trying to vet candidates for the quality of the principles of the party. It's that simple. I don't understand why that's a bad thing. All right? And I'd like for somebody to tell me why it's a bad thing. Because it's lawful, and I believe this is going to go out of the circuit court. And I don't believe that all the sides were prepared. I think that everybody was throwing everything they could at it because, no, this is uncharted territory. We're going to have to watch and wait and see. There's smart people on both sides. I think the GRA, I like the organization because those are the people that were coming to me asking me, hey, would you like to get involved? And I am doing the same thing with this show and with other people in the community. Hey, you need to come and get involved. You need to come out here and come to this party meeting and see what it's all about, because that's the only way that we're ever going to make a difference. But it has to start somewhere, and we have got to start holding people accountable for their actions. We have to let people know very clearly that our party is a party of principle, and that you must read it and follow it, understand it, and that's where we move forward. Or you end up like the Democrat Party, which will let any piece of just junk societal degradation just latch on to their party. All right? I mean, I really think that we're in some of the last bastions of a normal society here. I mean, look, we got Biden up there, for God's sakes. I mean, it's a travesty. It's an absolute travesty. So obviously we're going to be following this accountability case. Now let me give you another example, and I'm going to pull this up because this is just another example. Like, why can't things like this be done? Why are these things being ruled against? So let's look at this story real quick, this is from Politico. It says, let me make sure I got it pulled up here good. So this is just another example. Bloodbath at RNC. So we all know that Ronna McDaniel is out at the RNC, right? Trump team slashes staff at committee. Donald Trump's newly installed leadership team at the Republican National Committee on Monday began the process of pushing out dozens of officials, according to two people close to the Trump campaign. So are there going to be dozens of lawsuits because they got pushed out of their job, because they're being held accountable for their actions? Or they're weeding? This is not a comparison yet again. I'm telling you, I'm going down the line here. I'm sorry if you got disqualified or whatever. that's over where you're at. That's something we all have to deal with, and you have to learn to understand where the power lies. But it says, all told, the expectation is that more than 60 RNC staffers who work across the political communications and data departments will be let go. Those being asked to resign include 5 members of the senior staff, and of course the names were made public. This is just another example of somebody being held accountable for how bad. I mean, we all know that the RNC is in pretty bad shape right now. So what do you do if you're running a business? If you own a business and you've got 6 employees and 3 of them are just doing kind of a cruddy job, in your opinion, or whatever. You're the person that owns that business. You're the person that has to maintain that business. You're the face of that business, and you're trying to figure out how that you can save that business. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to let those people go. You're going to get them out of the way, and you're going to bring in new people that can come in and they can start fresh, and they can strengthen your business. It's the same difference here that is going on over in Catoosa and Pickens and Chattooga and everywhere else. There's no guarantee on any of this stuff. It's proven by actions and people getting involved in the party. It's very, very simple. Very simple. So let's see. Is it a bad thing to have people governing the representatives, pressuring them into the public interest instead of the interest of a corporatocracy? Then again, okay, is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that the people have a little bit of leverage over the legislators, right? Because that's what we've been taught in school. That's what we've been told, is that the people rule the party, the people govern the party, not the politicians. But it's always been the other way around. It has always been the other way around, with zero accountability. Zero. And the vast majority of the times, the people that have governed for decades in office, they turn right around and they get state-funded, national-funded jobs where taxpayers are paying their salary so that they can work in the shadows to take this power back. It's very, very simple. When you really, really look at it, that's what happens. You've got somebody that's been in there 20 years, and they get out of office. Next thing you know, they become a lobbyist, or they take over some sort of authority, or they do something where they've got plenty of cash money to fight against you. They got plenty of cash money to pay off news, TV, radio, and do all these things. They got plenty of money to delve out to people on social media and do all these things to shift this narrative and make it look like it's something horrible. And that, I mean, that's, wow. I mean, is it that bad? Is it that bad that you have groups of people, that you have your GOPs that can sit down and say, this is the direction that we're going to move in based on these principles? It's very, very simple, okay? It seems like one side's trying to stand on the principles and one side is standing on clinging to the power. And in my opinion, I believe we must always try to stand on the principles and for the common good of the people over the politics, because the other way around is why we are in the shape we're in. And I've always said this a million times about the Second Amendment. I'm a Second Amendment. I'm a freedom of speech absolutist. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. We cannot have honest discussions because of the extremes. We're always trying to push people off into the extremes. We're always. And they're never going to stop trying to take our guns away. And, you know, and every time they come back and they push it again and push it again, there's a little bit, another sliver that gets taken away and taken away. They're having huge conversations about TikTok right now, on social media, whatever, in the government. And guess what? It's just another sliver of First Amendment speech, another sliver that they're taking away from you because they realize they have to do this stuff incrementally. So I don't know if that's as clear as mud, but I don't understand why that their accountability is not recognized in the way that it is meant to be recognized at this moment in time. I understand from the public point of view that it's harder to understand. It's not that easy to pick up. And some people think it is, but it took me a while to understand what it is. But people must know, candidates must know, legislators must know that this is not going away. At the end of the day, this is a freedom of association. You will be held accountable for your actions. You will be held accountable by the people. And it's going to take place. And if you are voting against the Republican principles, if you are siding with Democrats, if you're doing all of these things that go against the party, you will not be able to run as a Republican. It's very simple. The Democrats have done it before. Everybody's done it before. This is, it's been done. So it's not going away. Title 21. That being said, which I moved my entire show around this week for this after watching the video, and I'm trying to make sure that people have a clear picture. Understanding can only be reached with a confrontation. You shouldn't take my word for it. You should read the articles. You should check out the GRA. You should check out what media is saying. You should maybe check out the court proceedings or find out where they're going on. Believe they have another hearing coming up soon. Get involved in it. Figure out where all this, let it be clear to you, because I don't know how much clearer to make it. We must hold people accountable for their actions. We should be held to a standard, and we should be holding our legislators to a standard. And at the end of the day, the legislators should be coming back to the people and saying, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to be on the same page about this. That's where this miscommunication comes from. Once you become elected, all of a sudden you're over here and the people are over here, and we've got to stop this, okay? So I want to get to the name calling a little bit, because I'm trying to keep it balanced here. I hear a lot of talk. Two things I want to bring up before I get off the air about, because I'm considered a crazy, I know. I'm one of the crazies, right? The tinfoil hatters, wear it with pride, whatever. So, I guess establishments, they wear theirs with pride, whatever. But that's just where we're at with this name-calling stuff. But two things that I'm hearing in several little groups and things is that, number one, we're being called crazy to begin with. And number two, that there's a lot of us crazies telling people not to vote, okay? As you can see, I've got my Georgia Peach on. I went and voted. I'm telling people to go vote. This is a non-issue. If there is some people out there, I'm sure there's some really hardcore people out there that are never going to vote on Dominion systems again, and that is not even their fault. That's the fault of the state government and all the crap that they've put us through over these systems. But the outcry has been, you can't scream it any louder, and it's continually being ignored at every single point. You can't pull evidence. You can't do all of these things because it's being stop. Everybody knows there's something wrong with our election process, especially in this state, which has a contract that they cannot break. But I have not heard anybody saying not to go vote. In fact, it's the exact opposite. I've heard people saying, regardless of what's going on, you must go cast your vote. So I really wanted to address that, because I'm speaking for some people here that I know, the people that I talk to, and when I interact with the GOP, everybody's still about voting. There's nothing you can do. Everybody's working tirelessly. A lot of people are anyway, to kind of fix this voting system, try something different, the paper please, and to get away from these systems, right? They're being fought tooth and nail. But I have not heard a single person since I've been doing what I've been doing say to not go vote. And I'll full honesty, there's been a few times where I thought, well, what is the point, right? But there is a big point, and we all need to be on the same page. You have to go vote. Even if you've never voted before, this 2024 is going to matter more than anything else in probably the history of America. And we are on the downslope of the history of America. But you have to go cast your vote, and you have to let your voice be heard, because we need everybody out there. I'm just saying, if you've got to do it. I don't hear anybody saying not to vote. And before I go to the comments, I'm about to get to them. You call me crazy. Well, tell me what is so crazy about me, because what do I want? I want accountability. I want less government. I want less laws. I want a balanced budget. I want legal immigration. I want the racial divide, the manufactured racial divide, to disappear. I want truth and transparency. I want esoteric Hollywood to go away. Leave the children alone. I don't want a digital currency system. I want less institutional interference, better education, less institutionalized education, less war. I want our secure borders. I mean, is that crazy to want those things? Is that because I don't know how that's crazy, but I know a lot of people say I'm an extremist for those things. But I think if we could get half of those things done at a level, guess what? Our America would be much better off, you know? But is that so crazy to want these things? So the next time you call me crazy, I just want you to maybe understand this is very clearly what I want. Those things right there, I don't think they're crazy at all. And to me, I think if you don't want those things, or the majority of those things, then there's something wrong with you, man. Leave my Constitution alone. Go back to the founding principles that our forefathers had put forth and get rid of this Illuminati deep state confusion that is going all around us. Go back to the family unit. Go back to education, go back to independence, self-reliance, these types of things. You know, that's what I want. And that's what I'm going to continue to fight for, because guess what? What we've not talked about in a while is that artificial intelligence is on the cusp of taking everything that we know of over. Okay? And that's a whole nother story that I'm not going to get into tonight. But this is a plan, y'all, and we have to be the gatekeepers. We have to be the ones that are standing up and fighting. And especially if some of these older people don't understand the technology that is coming out, that is coming against humanity. And you're going to think I'm really crazy there, but I'm telling you, this stuff is against humanity. You know, if we're not standing up, then what are you doing? Because, you know, it's a ticking time bomb that we are involved in right now, and we must have our Republican Party standing on principles, okay? And everybody needs to know that the accountability is not going away. It's not going away, and it will be enacted more, and people will be vetted, and people are going to have to pay the piper. They're going to have to work with the GOPs and work with the people on the ground, and we're going to have to get more transparent. That's all there is to it. Now I'm going to cover comments. So let's go back up here real quick. Now, y'all don't load me up. I'm already at 1:17. Good to see you, Mike. Good to see you, Kim. Barbara, thank you. Donna Evett, present. Thank you, Donna. Charles Stoker. Freedom of association is a gift from God Almighty. No man or government can force people to be friends associated with. Absolutely. If I was even worried about accountability, I would be sitting down and having heart-to-heart conversations with my constituents in the first place so that we could come to some sort of at least terms that we all understand that our principles go before our self-interest, right? That's not being done. Barbara Hambrick, but they didn't deny Green qualifying for the election. And you're absolutely right. They didn't. This is a new territory because these are things. Let me give you just a quick example. Because from me joining the party and getting super involved, it's been brought to everybody's attention that there's been a lot of things that's been done wrong. Doesn't mean it's been done wrong in a bad way or an illegal way, but the rules have not been being followed. Things have been able to just go in a certain direction because that was the status quo. It was always the way they were going. You understand now that you've got people that aren't a part of that system that are coming in and they're wanting to learn. We're wanting to see, well, how do I get involved and what do I need to do? And then you start to understand that things are not being ran right. Things are being done a certain way that might benefit so-and-so or whatever. Part of this is that nobody has stepped over into accountability, which is a freedom of association, right? Not in a very long time. And mind you, I say the Republicans use this against David Duke. The Democrats have used it in Catoosa County. Nobody ever said a word about it. It does not block you from ballot access like the media would have you believe. It blocks you from representing the party, okay, after being vetted. And if you don't like the vetting process, then you should get involved in the Republican Party where you can be a part of that vetting process. But you're right, it didn't happen from Green. And I don't know that Green would have gotten disqualified. And maybe she might have gotten disqualified because, you know, she was way far out of line from the establishment, right? So who knows? I'm not here to speculate on that, but I'm saying it's here now. And it all boils down, it doesn't even boil down to opinion as much as it boils down to certain things that they look at, like your voting record and things that you've done to, you know. And I'm not going to get into the meat and potatoes because I don't know, to be honest with you. Richard Schroeder, good to have you this evening. Says Trump rally last Saturday through the roof. And yes, from what I saw, the pictures I saw, it was definitely through the roof. People said they had a blast. Okay, Richard Schroeder, I worked 15 hours yesterday at Precinct 10. Final count, Trump 334 to Biden 29. First off, that's amazing news. And secondly, I can tell you firsthand, Richard Schroeder is a guy just like me or anybody else who didn't like what they saw. They got their little red pill. They woke up. They said, "Wow, things are really bad, and that things are bad right here." And he got involved. He wanted to get involved. He didn't want to get involved for any personal gain or self-interest. He wanted to get involved because he wanted to right the wrongs and make things as transparent as possible. He goes to these court cases so he can see what they're saying and he can understand what's going on. You know, we're in uncharted territory here because we've normal people waking up realizing that our country is slipping away from us. They're getting involved. That, if you were in part of this establishment, would be very scary for you because somebody's coming in and they're reaching in the cookie jar to find out how many cookies are in there. You see what I'm saying? We have a two-tiered system here. And that's what it needs to happen, is that we, the people, need to get involved. It's our responsibility to clean this house and to take care of this mess and to put things back on track. That's what accountability is. And Barbara, I'm not going to read that comment. I wish you hadn't posted it. Good Lord, woman. Charles Stoker, balanced budgets, small government, local control, right to life. We the people are sovereign, secure our borders, low taxes, free speech, Second Amendment rights. Government works for we the people. I mean, there's a mic drop. That is what we're talking about here. If we are not unified in that direction together, if we are constantly having representatives that don't care a bit about those things and they want to move in a different direction for self-interest, well, then what do we have here? We have the state of affairs that we're in right now. Charles Stoker, Mike Pons is a great patriot candidate for Congress against the Rhino Barry Loudermilk. Mike Pons has been on the show. We wish him the best. He's going to be one of our preliminary speakers at our event on April the 20th. Charles says MAGA, America First. And Charles says Patriots versus Rhinos. And that, like I said, we covered that already. These are slang terms, but, you know, now we kind of did the Rhinos and now they're doing the crazies. Well, I guess if you want to call me crazy, call me crazy. Mike Pearden says, I ran in 2016 for sole commissioner of Walker County. I did not know what to expect to qualify. So I walked into the GOP and wrote a check for over $3,000. They shook my hand, took a picture, and that was it. No questions about my loyalty or knowledge of the Republican standard. Just a check, handshake, and picture. I've got to say I was disappointed in the process and wondered why they even called it qualifying. That's a very, very good point. Well, what are we even doing? So what does that mean? Does that mean that all we care about as a party is just taking money, right? Is that all it was? Well, we don't really give a crap. We want 100 of you to qualify so that we can get 100 checks. I mean, think about what you just said here. That's just a money grab, right? Is that all this is about? Is this just a money grab, or is this somebody? Is this the representation of the Republican Party again to make sure that the candidates that are going to put an R next to the name are who they say that they are? You see, there's so many aspects of this that you could tie into accountability here that is being completely ignored. Okay, that is a great point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. You know, I would expect if I were to run for office that people would vet me and sit down and want to talk to me and hear my ideas and see what I'm wanting to do. That way they'd have a better understanding and you would get more information to the voters who would get excited about something. When's the last time besides Trump we've been excited about hardly anybody? You get what I'm saying? We've spent our whole lives voting against somebody and not for somebody. The minute we start to vote for somebody, the virus comes. You see my point here? So, Richard Schroeder says, deliberate confusion, 100%. Why has everything got to be so complicated all the time? Why can't we have open discussions? Why can't we talk? Why can't we make it Why can't we make it less confusing? You know, I've always heard the term where there's confusion, there's money. I guess that's what it is. The more confusing you can make things, the more payout that can be on the other side of this. Charles says best solution is to retire laws instead of making more of them. I couldn't agree more. I can't even understand how we can go into these legislative sessions and continue to make law after law after law after law. I mean, like, you know, putting lifesavers in a jar. At some point, the jar fills up. Like, when are we going to law ourselves to death here? You know, we're not even enforcing the laws we have on our books. The judicial system is broken in this country, and we know it. We're not even if we just enforced the laws that we had, we would not be in this bad of shape. So Charles says, need more whistleblowers, and we need them to protect them. Yeah, I was going to cover the story about the Boeing whistleblower that was coming out with all this information. All of a sudden, he wound up dead, if you haven't heard that story, but I'm going too long here. Deep state strategy is to distract and confuse we the people who are away in the majority. Well, of course it is. And going back to your other statement, we don't even need more whistleblowers as much as we just need people to wake up and realize that it's not about themselves. Like, the more corrupt that you make the system, the worse it's going to be on you to begin with. Some of these people could wake up, you know, and say, God, what have we done? Like, we got to fix this. But they don't, I guess they don't care, you know. Establishment is the beneficiary, I guess, of corruption and bribery. Of course, they don't want change. Absolutely. I mean, it's what it looks like to me, y'all. That's my optics. Trump had 200,000 more votes than Biden on Tuesday. Well, of course he did. You know, and our elections, thanks to people like Richard Schroeder, are being watched very closely, and that's what we need. We've got to keep and maintain an eye on every aspect of this. We are exhausting every avenue that somebody can go down to meddle, right? Donna Evett, nothing bad about vetting candidates. These four aren't even members of the Catoosa GOP. Well, there you go yet again. And I'm not saying that's even like you have to be, but my God, I mean, wouldn't you want to join the people that are representing the Republican Party when you vote as a Republican? I mean, these days of just people calling themselves whatever they want, it's all about actions. It's all about principles, and then with actions comes accountability. Yes, they should be joining the GOP and getting to know the people that are there to represent the communities. I mean, it's simple. Charles, the Supreme Court has ruled that the freedom of association is like a contract, and you must have two or more entities to have a contract. On one can force anyone. No one can force anyone into a contract. If you could force someone to association, the Libertarian Party could force Trump and or Biden must run as Libertarian. Agreed. Mike says he agrees. Charles, the Patriots will win the Catoosa County case. Judge Thompson is just wrong, not uncharted, long-standing Supreme Court precedent. And I'm not publicly saying that anybody's wrong or right in this case. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I am simply coming at this from the public interest, in my opinion, because it will be settled in a court of law. But I don't understand why nobody's asking the question, why is this wrong to begin with? Okay? I understand people are hurt and people think that they've been wronged, but why on earth is this a wrong decision to vet candidates? I don't understand it. So Charles Stoker says, right of association, not accountability case. Charles says, Pons is a plain-spoken truth teller and a patriot, and I assure you, Charles, he is not crazy. Communist China bought 720 acres in Chattooga. Yeah, we're working on that. Steve Henry and Jeff Long have a pending lawsuit for a First Amendment violation. So obviously, people are going to hit this from every angle possible, and it will get national attention. It's already getting out to the public. So I expect there to be lawsuits on both sides, and they're going to fight this and litigate it in court all the way up the ladder, just like everything else. And, we're just going to have to wait and see, and we're going to have to continue to get involved and watch what's going on, We can't really do anything about it, but what we can do is we can make this, no matter what happens in this case, the accountability is not going to go away, and people are going to be vetted, and people are going to be held to a standard, and that's what's going to happen. And people have been talking about this for longer than I even know about, Donna says, Larry Black has said to several people, I don't need to talk to you. Okay, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I don't understand that, but maybe that's, there's politicians like that. I could name some that don't really give two rats about talking to anybody about anything. It's a sad state of affairs, and we've let it go on too long, and we have to change that. Donna says, Vanita Hollander said, we live in a democracy. That is incorrect. We live in a constitutional republic, and democracy is just another dirty word for Democrat, whoever says that. So legislators have ignored our begging to do away with corrupt machines. Richard Schroeder, Trump says, too big, too rig. Let's hope so, because, we've got to keep an eye on every aspect of everything that's going on. And it's a sad state of affairs that we can't trust anything, right? Donna says, amen. Charles, thank you for what you are doing. I appreciate it. It's like the movie Terminator. Well, hey, man, we're not even going in there tonight. I just wanted to talk about what's going on. And Sharon Holland says, voting matters. Just look at the nursing student who was beaten to death in Georgia by illegal border crossers. Next, it could be our family. Biden has endangered all of us. Yes, voting matters. And Lisa Adams says they need to be held accountable. Folks, I don't know how much plainer to make it, and I appreciate everybody for hanging out. I had to get this off my chest. I've been thinking about it for days. My prayers go out to the GRA. My prayers go out to the Judge Thompson. My prayers go out to the 4 disqualified candidates. My prayers go out to the Constitution and Joanna Hildreth. I know this is taking a toll on her, but she also has a give, send, go. Because they are, I think, accumulatively, they're being held in contempt for about $200,000. So, if you feel the need, please go, and you can find the link on the video that I posted. Try to continue to keep this this dialogue going as long as we need to, because all of our counties need to be propped up by the people. It's very brave to see counties that were willing to stand up, such as like Catoosa County and Pickens County, and even go through the vetting process. Because either way, whether somebody was qualified or disqualified, the precedent has been set that it's not politics as usual any longer. It is the power to the people, the legislators answering to their constituents. Very, very plain, very simple. And that's the way it needs to be. Because things will move a lot smoother and there will be a whole lot more transparent. So even if people didn't get disqualified, or I'm not saying that anybody should have, but my point is the buck stops here, and we're not going to stop watching. We're not going to stop getting involved. It has got to change, or else we're going to die trying. So let's see. We've got a new comment. Jennifer Tudor, it's great to see you. My prayers go out to you. Rhinocrats, Dixiecrats, pro-establishment crooks are the only ones who have a problem with vetting. Well, it certainly seems that way. Let's not split hairs here, That's what I see. I see those types of people. I see the people that I, in my opinion, see that are working behind the scenes or off into the sidelines, are the people that are complaining about this. It's not the public, and it's not the people that are complaining. They kind of understand it. And then you've got the people in the middle who are calling and saying, what is this all about? Because they're reading one side of the argument. They're not getting the full picture here. You're not understanding accountability, because the thing that sells the clicks and the things that gets the people is the Republican Party is trying to shut down people, is trying to suppress your vote, is trying to do all these things. No, what we're trying to do is we're taking responsibility for all of our actions. And we're saying the buck stops here. We're going to supply you with people that are going to do right by you and by the party. That's what it is. And so I can't be any plainer into that. And I have no dog in this fight. I'm doing what I can do to make my community and my county stronger and better with the other adjoining counties. I am always an open book. I want the candidates to come in, and I'm planning on even covering accountability with them, because I don't need to. This is something that you need to understand and do a little research and just come to your own conclusion, because either way, the facts matter, and this will be settled at some point. So Jennifer says, look at Steve Henry versus Hollander's records, for Christ's sake. Like I said, you can go in and look at a lot of things. You know, people are like, well, how can they do this? Well, maybe you should do a little digging and realize the people that we're dealing with here. Maybe you should realize what kind of professions they are in. What are they doing? Who do they run with? You know, that kind of thing. And you might start seeing a bigger picture painted as to why we want fresh blood, why we want people that are going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're going to do it in the best interest of the people. It's that simple, y'all. How can anybody argue against it? All right, so I went way past my hour. I surely appreciate it. We're going to continue Candidate Mondays. I think I gave you the schedule. I will post it. I also, for all of my viewers out there, I posted the premiere about an hour ago of my documentary footage that came from the opening legislative session. It's now on YouTube, and it can be shared. I added a couple of little tidbits in there that people can, like the music and stuff. But anyhow, it's unedited so that you can get the true view of what we got today. The only splits are where I had to split the video up or I hit stop the button. Nothing has been edited. It's all one piece, and it's rather long. It's a couple hours. But it's your responsibility to look at this footage and you make your own conclusions of your own legislators and how this thing panned out. But it's finally out there and long awaited. And I'm going to post it to Rumble and Facebook just as soon as I get off here. Let's see. Jennifer says maybe Henry can inject Hollander with some of those vaccine he loves. Whew, Lord have mercy. Don't even get me started on that now. Don't even get me started on that. But anyhow, I hope that this helped you. I could only tell this story from my point of view coming into all of this and how I was activated, okay? I'm a poor, I am a person, a community working class person trying to raise a family and keep a roof over my head. I am not in any position to run or a position to lead people in a legislative role, but I am looking for a change to the current structure that we have in place. And accountability is a tool that has always been there to help the people. Regardless of what the media says or what the narrative is, you must understand that it is the power of the people. It is our job to have good quality people that abide by the party principles and transparency to move us forward out of the sludge that we are in. So, yes, there's events coming up. I covered them at the beginning, and we will cover them ad nauseum as we go on. Folks, I appreciate it. I'll be back here Monday evening, I believe. Yeah, this Monday evening with Shannon Whitfield. We're going to let him have the show, and he's going to communicate with you so you can share it. He can share it, and we'll be back Wednesday of next week to go through some more news and all kinds of stuff. You guys have a great evening.